Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we'll take a look at this. And I promise it's not another 1845/55. Well, it is in a sense, but it's not what you're expecting. I promise this is a different model. And I wanted to show it to you and talk about it for two main reasons. The first is that, as I mentioned, it is a different model. It's a Belgian 1845, or modeled after the 1845 at least, not French. So what we're going to do is look at some of the characteristics, some of its main characteristics, what makes it slightly different from the French version. But then also I want to show you it's damaged, as you can see. The hilt is a little loose, but the blade is actually in remarkably good condition. So I am planning to actually tighten the peen here and kind of make it whole again. And I'll show you the assembly, because it's actually a little unusual. And my comment section is open to any advice you may have on how to best proceed, because it's a little bit of a tight spot here to work with. And yeah, and I'd like to understand what you think would be the best way forward to repeen it and make it whole again. Anyway, you all know about the 1845. I've talked about it a bunch of times, so let's dive straight into the details of the sword. And I hope you enjoyed it. This is a sword that I think, if I'm able to fix up, at least so that the hilt here isn't as loose as it is now, will be an actually very beautiful sword in my collection. The only defects that will be left after that are this up bend of the quillin, which unfortunately I think I'm not confident enough to try and bend back. I don't want to break it. And the last thing is the cap I mentioned. It's missing here. So if any of you have images of Belgian swords with the version with the end cap to cover the peen, I would greatly appreciate it. And if any of you works brass, for example, or is metal worker, I might even think of having one made, if possible. So anyway, if you think you can help with the end cap thing, please reach out. I would love to hear from you, because yeah, this is an interesting project. So as usual, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you very soon with another sword video, and thank you for watching. And as I'm getting used to do in more recent videos, if you enjoy what I do, please like and subscribe. It really means a lot for the channel. Okay, let's take a look at the Belgian 1845. So we know the 1845, so I won't go through all of the details about it, but I'll just show you a few of its unique special features and then run you through what my plans are to try and repair it. So the hilt here is the typical 1845 hilt you would find on any French sword. This one is it would be in decent conditions if not for the fact that the quillin, unfortunately, is upturned and has a slight crack in it. This is fairly common with brass. Brass can be delicate, so for this reason it's probably not advisable to try and bend it back in place. Now, well, actually, let's keep the grip for later, because then I'll show you where it's damaged and how I plan to repair it. First, let's take a look at maker's marks and marks in general. This is a sword that has quite a bit of them. We have it might be interesting for Belgian sword collectors especially. So we have what looks like a GD, perhaps, there on the side, under what looks like a crown. And then we have a date, 1859. So there's no need to speculate. In this case, we know exactly what year it was made in. There we go. On the other side, we also have a lot of markings. So we have a GB, or GR, perhaps. I'm not sure. No, GB. Every time I look at these marks through the screen while I'm filming, they look completely different to what they look at like when I'm checking them out live. And then we have a T in a kind of a semi-rectangular frame. And then we have this square, this rectangular mark here with written Funson. I hope you can read, but if not, there we go, that seems. Funson a Brooks. So Funson is a very prolific Belgian blade maker. So a lot of Belgian swords will have been made by Funson. And there are many different iterations of his, actually, because it was a family. There were multiple Funsons, multiple generations too, if I'm not mistaken. So there are different iterations and versions of the maker's mark. It usually mentions Funson, only Funson or something like that. This one I've never seen. I've also got in touch with an expert in Belgian swords, but he also didn't seem to recognize that specific version of this maker's mark. So yeah, it's just something for anyone that's perhaps out there collecting Belgian swords. This may be slightly unusual, so something you may want to keep in mind, just because you may find a similar version and not be able to place it. Now, the blade configuration is similar to the 1845. But not exactly the same. In this case, we have the initial fuller here the smaller fuller starts right at the start of the blade, basically. So right where the tang meets the edge of the blade here, we have this small fuller that runs parallel to this wider, shallower one. And they just run together most of the way up. And then we have that typical drop in the bottom edge of the narrow fuller that kind of starts separating from its previous direction and moves towards the center of the blade. So then we have that spear tip with the fuller edge to act as the center part. As you can see, it's in very good conditions apart from some staining, which is to be expected. So especially on this side and especially towards the tip, you have some dark staining. But as you can see, depending on the light, it can look better or worse. This side instead is actually rather well kept. Okay, but let's move into the hilt now, because I want to show you quickly what the problem is, also what a little quirk of this sword is. So as you can see, the peen here is loose, and this brought the whole knuckle bow here to loosen. Normally it would be fixed in place here like this, in this groove, in this slot, and then once you peen it, everything tightens together. What's interesting about this one is that compared to the French 1845s, which have basically an end cap and the peen is traditionally protruding from there, some of these, so this is one of those, have a hidden peen, basically. You can see the peen is here, and it kind of fixes on this little square piece of metal, so I would assume that it was just hammered down there until this piece of metal kind of pressed onto the hilt and everything contracted into place. And then a end cap, a brass end cap was placed over it so that when the sword was assembled, you wouldn't have seen the peen. I'm not sure this was a great idea because it obviously makes maintenance a little more difficult. And it's also, for me, it's going to be a little bit tricky to figure out how to put it back in place. Because what I would like to do to this sword is tighten it all up, and then tighten this peen again so that the whole sword assembly is functional again and tight. And who knows, if I ever get to find an end cap, that would be the cherry on the cherry on the hilt, let's say.